So, since Reynor has moved to Korea for a couple of months, he's decided to play in some of the online cups from Korea as well. What I've got for you today is a best of 3 series where in game number 1, we have none other than Rainor opening up with a spawning pool at 12 supply. So, he started up a drone, cancelled a drone, you get 50 minerals back, the larva shouldn't really be an issue. And then I guess he decided to go for the fastest possible pool. His opponent, in the opposite corner, playing with the red Zerg pieces. A man I've been featuring a lot over, well, I was gonna say the last couple of days, but really a lot over the last couple of years. We're looking at none other than Dark's main base. This is a series that a lot of you reached out to me about, so I am not 100% sure what to expect, but we're certainly starting off with a bang. By the way, if Dark... So here's the thing about Dark, right? He's been playing a lot of entertaining games for many, many years, and it's been rumored he's gonna go to the military for ages now, but he's still here, and he's still playing in tournaments, and he's still very entertaining, so I'm gonna keep watching his matches, and we're gonna keep having a look at exactly what the man is up to. Now, looks like on Crimson Court, which is game number 1 in this series, Reynor is gonna run a lot of links right at the very beginning of the game, and we're gonna bring drones as well. Okay, so we're gonna bring everything but 3 drones, and then, well, you can still reinforce this whilst also building a bunch of spine crawlers on your opponent's creep. Dark sees this coming in from a mile away, but is there really anything he can do? Well, here's the thing. If you micro everything perfectly, yes, you can deal with this. Main problem is microing everything perfectly. Dark right now checking if there's a cancelled hatch that may have turned that drone into a spine crawler on the other end. The margin for error with these builds is so incredibly small, and it's one of the reasons why for a while in this matchup we used to see spawning pools right over there on top of the high ground, just to block this surface area, but it looks like Dark, well, he's decided to put his spawning pool in the middle of nowhere, and that could actually backfire too. Drones have decided to start turning against other drones as well. Problem is, there's a bunch of Zerglings in the mix. No hidden spine crawler on the low ground either, so I don't think what Dark is doing here is quote-unquote correct. As long as Rainor micros this properly, he should be fine. One of the spine crawlers gets cancelled, but obviously there's more links coming across. 2 of the spines are just about to finish, and I think as long as 1 spine crawler is at full HP, how in the world are you gonna kill that here as Dark? There's a queen available right now, but he could only afford 1 coming out of the main hatch, and there it is. GG is called. Rainor wins game number 1. Okay, well, just like just like that, we find ourselves on Oceanborn. Rainor is not starting up a drone. So there's a worker that will just about to pop here for Dark. Rainor is not doing any of the... Okay, yeah, we're just gonna... Alright, we're just gonna do another 12 pool. Now, there are a couple of different flavors of 12 pool. I would say that the most popular variant in the current day and age is the 12 pool into 17 hatch. So you make a bunch of Zerglings, you try to get a council, maybe to kill on a couple of drones. Council on the hatch, that is, on the other side of the map. And then you just continue playing a macro game as normal. Main downside of those openers, though, of a 12 pool opener in general, is when the opponent goes for a pool first at, say, like 16, maybe 17 supply. This is Dark once again going for a hatchery first on the low ground. So what I was trying to explain... In the past, whenever the 12 pool builds were quite popular, the drone pool variant that is, we used to see spawning pools, say, right over here on the edge of creep, and then you could like create like a semi-wall over here too, bunch of evolution chambers when you see your opponent's drone rush coming in, at which point you can, well, create a much better service area. He's doing it again. Yeah, he's already selected drones, he's already hotkeyed drones, he's gonna pool drones again. A back-to-back drone pool against Dark. Well, normally Dark is known as a cheeky man, but sometimes Raynor does get in these moods. Alrighty then. Let us have a look. So Dark is going to see this at about 19 supply. Raynor is not trying to like take a long route around the map. He's gonna see this right now, that once again, something is a little bit fishy. Spawning pool, I don't love this. Dark says, wow. Fair enough. Yeah, I don't disagree. There's not a whole lot you can do right here as Dark, other than do the same thing that you did in the previous game, but then slightly better. Problem is, it's so easy to mess up that even when you feel like you're like this is 10 times easier for the aggressor than it is for the defender. And it is technically defendable from this position, but it's so easy to mess up. Because you don't want to, like, you don't really want to fight this until your lings it out, but at the same time, obviously, you can't really let the spine crawlers go up. Nice mineral walking right there by both players, but ultimately, I've got a feeling there's just too many blue lings. Yeah, and the spine crawlers are obviously not being addressed here at all. I think that's game. This is already too much damage. Obviously, Dark has still got more workers than his opponent at this point in time, but we're once again getting close to the point where, well, this time around, even 2 spine crawlers are finishing. I think in the previous game, we also did have that second... Oh, what? Okay, thank you. That's the first time that has happened during a cast. Is my internet okay? Is it just the Battle.net servers? Anyways, GG is called. Dark literally has no more drones. Now, if you don't mind, that best of 3 series we just had a look at was much too short for a full video. If you don't mind, I'm gonna cast another best of 3 series. It's time for a Protoss versus Zerg. It's once again a Reynor, playing right here in the top left-hand corner. Sorry, playing with the red Protoss pieces. We have not on a Reynor. For some reason, he decided to play with the Protoss pieces this time around again. Okay, his opponent, I would call this man Korea's second best Zerg, although sometimes he certainly does overshadow Dark. We're looking at none other than Solar's main hatchery. Solar is a very different player, especially when you compare him to Dark. I would say that Dark is a bit of a madman. Solar, generally speaking, a little bit more conventional, but obviously Solar is incredibly successful in his own right, winning a GSL Code S last year, and just in general, always looking very, very solid. So for Rainor to play Protoss against Solar really does seem like an uphill battle, but I guess we'll find out together. So, in case you've not really seen Rainor play a lot of Protoss in the past, there's this one game that he played at Home Story Cup. This was at the end of 2023. For some reason, it feels ages ago, but I guess this is like 4 or 5 months ago. He played a game against Serral on, yeah, it must have been, because that was that crazy map that I've already forgotten the name of right now. Raduset Station, yeah. That particular map was considered to be very good for Protoss, specifically against Zerg. And because that particular map came up in the series that they played, Reynor decided to, well, play Protoss against Serral at the time. And he famously, spoiler alert, I do recommend you, by the way, go ahead and check out that video. I'll try and find it, and if I do, I'll link it down below in the description of this video. Spoiler alert if you're gonna watch it, although journey before destination, I suppose. There's no denying that Reynor played some fantastic Protoss, because he ended up beating Serral's Zerg, and Serral at the time, really right now as well, looks pretty much unbeatable in that matchup. Some of the fastest Protoss gameplay I've ever seen, and in a very strange way, it was Reynor playing a Zergy style of Protoss. So even though he didn't play the Swarm, he was certainly still trying to swarm the opponent, you know? None of that, like, heavy tech approach with the laid-back carriers and going into Disruptors, Colossi, Tempest, that slow-moving, mechanical army. That's not really the style that he seems to favor, at least last time I've seen him play Protoss. He seems to go for a lot more of that Stalker, Zealot-based army instead, with heavy warp-ins all over the map and tons of multitasking. And honestly, it was very impressive. Now, that's been a little while, right? You can't really just not play Protoss for several months and then get back into the swing of things. So to clarify, Reynor has moved to Korea, I think for maybe 2 weeks or so at this point in time. And I believe his plans are to play in the GSL Code S and to still obviously participate as well in some of the big online events that are going on at the same time. Although, I think one of the considerations that he had to make is that if he plays in the European events from Korea, he will probably be forced to play on the European server, because otherwise it would just be kind of, you know, unfair for his opponents, which means that he would play with a ton of ping. Which, yeah, does make the game a little bit more frustrating, but I guess he still decided better of it. Is my sound on, by the way? It looks like European server is down. So that little pop-up notification that I just got apparently was only for the European server, because the North American server works. But apparently your sound settings do not carry over from server to server. So I decided to switch. And then my sound was off, man. My professional video production completely ruined. Anyways, it's gonna be a Void Ray first right here for Reynor, who is, already mining out these skinny mineral fields on the left side of the natural. Now, Solar will see this coming in from a mile away. These have 20 minerals in them each, if I'm not mistaken. Oh no, they actually have 10 over here. Interesting. Anyways, he's gonna be mining those out pretty quickly. Takes 2 trips apparently for the probes, and then he will be able to take that Nexus nice and easily. Void Ray first is always a bit tricky. Now, Void Ray second is very tricky. I don't even remember last time I've seen Void Ray as the second Stargate unit as well. This is actually super weird. So there was a time, he's actually going Void Ray third. Okay. There was a time and place a couple years ago, you may remember, when we had that double Stargate Void Ray meta. And it was so abusive and it was considered to be so overtuned that we in the end ended up having a triple Void Ray nerf. Now you rarely get a unit double nerfed in StarCraft 2. A triple nerf was ridiculous. I think the unit got more expensive, the build time got increased, and overall the unit movement speed or something also was reduced. For quite a while though, the double Stargate Void Ray meta, it kind of wreaked havoc on the ladder, right? It's still something you can do. It's still something that is technically viable, but it's just a little bit weird. I think that's the last time I've seen a pro gamer go for mass Void Ray. Look at that, we have another one. Oh, at least for a moment, we had another one queued up. He's got 3 of them right now, but there is a transition coming up towards the Twilight Council and the Forge. I think Reynor wanted to make another Void Ray, but then he decided, nah, that would mean I have to delay my upgrades over here. There's a lot of Zerglings, by the way, on the production tab, which is a bit funky. Obviously for Solar, okay, I was gonna say, he's looking at this, he's like, wait a second, you haven't done any economical harassment whatsoever. I haven't really taken any damage other than that one Overlord. You have 3 Void Rays. What if I bring my Queens to watch the other side of the map? This is a full wall in over here from Raynor. He made a lot of sentries of all units. My god, what is going on here? This is the strangest game of Protoss I've seen in a long while. I think the plan of Solar here is excellent. Yeah, try to get a Nidus Worm in your opponent's base. Get the Queens across the map. Because there is really no way that the Void Rays are going to do well with a straight up fight. I mean, there's 8 Queens available. I guess we don't even have to pop it over here. Nah. There is a double layered wall here, by the way, so there's a hold position possible over there as well as right over there. Tons of Zerglings, too. Alright, well, this is the moment where Rainor realizes he is in a little bit of trouble. He's going into Blink Stalkers, he's going into the +1 ground as well. Solar decided to put the second worm in a position where, well, he can hopefully distract some of that army. Queens are popping back into the worm over here, only to reappear inside of the main base. Oh, quick, transfuse! Oh, he didn't get the transfuse off! I mean, he got 1 transfuse off, so the units that pop out of the worm first are the ones you put in first, and a couple of Zerglings somehow, some way managed to... GG. So what I was trying to say is that a couple of Zerglings snuck in front of the Queens, and, well, they take up as much time to pop out of the Nidus Worm as a Queen does as well. So I think if Solar would have been able to pop out like 6 or 7 Queens all at the same time, or at least one after another, and then the Zerglings would start coming out, he could have used transfusion from those Queens to go after, you know, the Nidus Worm, and he would have been able to actually save it. And at that point, I think Raynor may have been in a lot of trouble. Raynor right now anticipating that Solar is going to go for the gold base first, but that is actually not the case. Yeah, he's going to start patrolling back and forth, but it looks like Solar is just going to expand over on his natural expansion instead. Looks like we have a gateway over here on the low ground as well for our, well, Protoss player who used to once upon a time be Zerg, aka just about 10 minutes ago. I know that Reynor, by the way, has been laddering a bunch with Protoss as of late. Not exactly sure if I can find his current rankings. There is SC2 Revealed, which is a website that keeps track of all of the barcode accounts and who they are at the minute and everything else that's going on. I can look at the Korean server here and maybe I can find Raynor. So Raynor with Zerg is currently the rank 13 on the Korean server. There's also a Terran player named Raynor at rank 34 Grandmaster. I didn't realize Raynor may have been playing Terran. I'm not 100%. Anyways, Raynor seems to be having a good old time is what I'm getting at. And ultimately, you know, it's very easy, I've noticed over the years, when pro gamers are taking the game super serious, it's really easy to start viewing the game as a job. Because that's ultimately what it is, right? If you're a professional gamer, some of these guys make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, you want to obviously treat it as a job. But at the same time, there is an argument to be made that you need to have a certain playfulness when you're trying to get good at a game. I think there's probably a little bit of playfulness that needs to be there with everything that you're trying to get good at in general. Because if you take things too seriously, it may actually backfire in the end. So Reynor messing around with Protoss, him messing around with some Terran as well, playing in some of the, smaller online cups, but still a couple $100 on the line, just trying to... You really, there's one thing to be said for, like, you know, not taking it quote-unquote as serious. I know that will bother some, you know, hardcore fans, like, oh, Reynor, why are you messing around? But at the same time, there's a lot of you out there, myself included, that look at this and that get extremely excited to see Reynor sitting with a 1-0 advantage against Solar's Zerg whilst he's playing Protoss. That's ridiculous. That's something that is basically unheard of, right? So there will be some people that are like, maybe actually try it. Like, cause here's the thing, Reynor at like the most recent premier tournaments hasn't really had the performance that he was hoping for. So him messing around like this may, rub some people the wrong way, but I think it's actually a pretty good approach, right? Maybe splitting your attention, like maybe, I don't know, 80-20 or so. So 80% of your hardcore practice time is gonna go to Zerg. 20% or so of Reynor's hardcore practice time could go into playing some Terran and Protoss as well, or whatever the percentages happen to be, but you can do both, you know? And there's a lot of value too in playing this matchup from the Protoss' point of view. Even though it may seem like this wouldn't be the most efficient practice for Reynor, and maybe it isn't, there's still certainly value in seeing exactly what the Protoss feels like while they're playing a game against Zerg. So this is really not wasted practice by any stretch of the imagination. Maybe it would be a bit of a waste if Reynor starts practicing Protoss versus Terran, or, you know, Terran versus Terran, Protoss versus Protoss. That doesn't really benefit his Zerg matchup very much, right? But yeah, there's something to be said for looking at these matchups from the opponent's race's perspective, just to get an understanding of how exactly they feel. Because, for example, I did not realize for many, many years, when I played Zerg, that when you go up against Protoss, and Protoss is at this stage taking a third base, I did not quite realize how few units Protoss actually has. So we're literally talking 2 gateway units right here together with a Void Ray. That's it. That is all that Solar is going up against at the moment. And Reynor has got as many Nexi right now as he's got freaking attacking units. Well, at the very least, before I started that sentence. And then at the same time, I think it's also nice to look at how much vision the opponent actually has. That's another one of those things that's not entirely obvious. Protoss, for the most part, is incredibly blind. If you compare it to Zerg, it's very easy to think, oh, I would like to have vision of that section of the map. It's very easy for Zerg to send an Overlord or a Ling or whatever towards that section of the map, and that is not even really talking about the creep yet, right? The creep ultimately gives you so much vision around your site, but for Protoss that really isn't quite the same. There's a lot of these very dark spots where units could be hiding, you know? It's like checking for the monster under your bed. Zerg has full vision of every monster. For Protoss, you need to be a little bit more cautious. Anyways, all of this is to be said that Reynor, though, is going to go once more into a Void Ray and then into some very quick Stalker play. So this is a very early third Nexus. He's already mined out these sections over here, of course, so he could be going for golden minerals or a proxy gate or something along those lines. But this is a much faster blink than what we normally see. Is there really anything that Reynor can do with this blink at this point? Because he doesn't have a... Yeah, he's going to go for a proxy pylon, maybe a proxy gateway too. He does not have a... He doesn't have an easy way to send reinforcements in, right? He would have to warp in at home. So how many gateways do we currently have? It's going to be 4 gateways. There's the infestation pit coming up too for Solar. In a very strange way, if you find a new build right here as Reynor, you may be helping out your Protoss opponents. That will make it a little bit funky. This is actually kind of a crazy timing, because this is not the moment at which you normally expect Blink Stalkers as the Zerg when you go up against a Stargate opener. Now, normally there would also be an Oracle here to cast Revelation and get rid of the creep. Well, he certainly could have blinked that one Stalker back, but... So Reynor's got a good feeling for this right now. He knows that there's going to be mass unit production for quite a while. He also knows, though, that these Lings are going to have a pretty tricky time trying to actually, fight this army off creep. Looks like Solar is still going to try. My god, what is this attack? So there is a proxy gate, by the way, that's going to speed up the reinforcements quite a bit. I would have loved to see an Oracle. I think an Oracle here, Revelation on the creep, that would secure the kill on that base. Reynor needs to be incredibly careful when he gets those Stalkers onto the creep, because suddenly the Lings are so much faster and the vision again for Zerg is so good. Hive coming up, by the way, in the meantime. So Solar not really too concerned, apparently, about how all of this is going. Void Ray did find another Overlord, apparently. Decides to back off immediately. +1 missile just about to finish up as well for the Zerg. And I think ultimately Solar is going to be able to push this back quite comfortably. There's the Lurker then, by the way. Okay. So I think the intent right here for Reynor was to try and kill the base. Maybe try and slow down... Ooh, there goes the Void Ray. Maybe try to slow down the advancement of the Zerg tech as well. But I think Solar has handled this really easily. Not really, yeah, taking a whole lot of risks. Goes straight into the Hive. Doesn't feel like he needs to really respect that push all too much. And even though the goal right here for the Protoss was to try and delay the Zerg, I don't think Solar has really been delayed at all. And this does actually make this follow-up with Lurkers very tricky to play against, I would imagine. Because, well, ultimately, Reynor doesn't have a lot of tech of his own. So he's going into Storm right now. He's going to go into the Robo Facility production too. Does catch a couple of those Roaches, though. Okay, not bad. In total, 5 Roaches have gone down. 4th Nexus is finished at this point in time, where you can see there's a lot of static defense coming up, and that is a clear indicator that Reynor is feeling like he is under a lot of pressure. There's the Lurker range research. There is the Hydralisk speed research. If all of these upgrades are gonna finish up, right? Especially the Hydra and the Lurker ones, I think Solar can go for a killer timing attack. And, well, you're gonna need to have some really good storms in order to hold that. Storm? Okay, well, at least now it's revealed. Now at least Solar knows what he's going up against. Problem is, does he really care, right? When you have Seismic Spines, that's the ranged upgrade, you can get those... You can really deny those High Templar, right? You can get on top of them relatively easily. So there's 11 of those bad boys coming up on the production tab. More of them are morphing in. Phoenix is coming up, so Reynor's plan is to try and pick up some of those Lurkers, but that really does feel like a desperation play. Maybe he's a little afraid of like a Nidus Worm being popped into the main base, just like what we saw in the previous game, right? Lurkers in the main right now would be a disaster. Yeah, the attack is looming. Big push over here at the front. Natural expansion in a little bit of trouble. Lovely attack as well for Solar, because these are units that he doesn't really want to have anymore. Like, Roaches take up a lot of supply. I think the real fight is going to be the one over here on the right. Okay. Roaches and Lings going into the main base. The Zerglings don't have great upgrades. But kind of like siege tanks, you know, Solar can start slow pushing them. I think he could move the ones in the back a little further forward, or you can just unburrow everything. My god, that does mean, though, that this entire army gets blanketed with Storm. Archons and Immortals trying their best. I don't think I love that movement, if I'm being brutally honest with you. I think he should have done that a little bit slower. Ultimately, though, the Lings and the Roaches in the main base have done a tremendous amount of damage. And on the back of this, well, we've got more Lurkers and Hydras and Zerglings and things that aren't Roaches, right? Things that are gonna improve the, well, 199, 198 or so supply count right here for Solar. Quite a bit. When you have a lot of supply caught up in those Roaches, life can, well, look a little ugly. But right now, this Protoss army is in a world of trouble. Zerglings once again going around the site. Reynor taking a page out of Hero's book. No Adept in the Wall-Off. Although I think this time around, this will be cleaned up a little bit easier. Let's see if the fight on the right side goes a bit better right now for Solar. And since all of those storms are gone, yeah, I think this time around, he is going to find the value that he was hoping for last time, right? He's trying to get on top of that Nexus. There's those Phoenixes trying to lift up whatever they can. It's a cute play, but I don't think I love it in the end because it's very desperate. Because obviously when there's a lot of Hydras close by, you can just deal so much damage. Instead, what we're doing, though, is we're going for a Mass Stalker counterattack. Fair enough. Reynor dealing a lot of damage to this Nexus at the... Oh, sorry, no, that's... Solar doing a lot of damage to the Nexus right here at the 6 o'clock position. Caster Autopilot engaged. Ultimately, though, we're fighting Mass Stalker. Yeah, with Hydra Ling, right? And that's going to be an easy fight right here for Solar. Lurkers are too thick. Are Lurkers too thick? I feel like you guys can fit. Yeah. No, you guys have to fit in one at a time. That's awkward. But ultimately, Solar is going to be able to get those units up towards the high ground. Adrenal Glance is going to finish up, which is going to give the Lings about a 40% attack speed improvement. And honestly, this fight is pretty much irrelevant. Because even if somehow, some way, Reynor manages to hold on, look at the supply count right now. Look at the upgrades. Look at the economy for Solar. Solar has got everything going in this game. And I think even if somehow Reynor pushes this back, there's no way he's going to be able to win. Wait a second. I thought I had the wrong replay here for just a moment. We're once again on Oceanborn. This time around, however, well, Reynor has decided to play with the Zerg pieces himself, but it's not a 12 pool. Nope, we're not going for a 12 pool. What are we doing then instead? A 15 hatch. Okay. 15 hatch is pretty good if you suspect that your opponent could be 12 pooling, I suppose, or anything aggressive from the other side of the map. I don't think Solar's really gonna do that. Solar in general is very much so a normal Zerg player. Quote unquote normal, right? He doesn't really play anything too feisty. Obviously, he does mix it in from time to time, but he, in my mind, is the quintessential macro Zerg. He's very good at just playing, well, what we consider to be standard StarCraft. Rainor too, by the way. Like, that's the thing that's kind of throwing me off maybe a little bit. Rainor is incredibly good at playing, well, normal SC2, what we normally consider to be the standard, but he can throw these curveballs, and I don't think he would really be playing these styles and these race switches so easily when it comes to the big tournaments where loads of money is on the line. I guess we'll have to see when the World Cup is played later this year, but I think players are going to play different strategies than we have been seeing them play in the online cups. But it is funny to, yeah, imagine at the very least what is possible, right? Because if you're going up against players, so say you're a top tier competitor and you're going up against Solar in an online event or in an offline massive tournament, right? You know what you're gonna get. You know exactly the flavor of Solar you're gonna be getting that day, because he basically always does the same thing. And it's gonna be hard to beat him, don't get me wrong, because he's very good at playing normal StarCraft, but at least you know what to expect. Imagine, though, going up against another Zerg player, like Dark, like, for example, Reynor in this case. What in the world are you going to expect? Like, say you're Dark and you're going up against Reynor at the World Cup later this year, right? That could potentially happen. We have no idea. Are you going to be thinking about these games? Because they don't really face off against each other all too much. Are you going to assume that he's going to 12 pool you 2 games in a row? I think at the very least, if you're Dark, you're gonna brush up on your knowledge as far as defending against a 12 pool goes, because it is very easy to get stuck in your own head. Now, I don't think Dark really, mentally has any troubles with those sorts of commitments. I'm fairly sure he can put himself over that pretty easily, but it is something to keep in mind, you know? Like, even though these smaller online cups may not necessarily matter that much as far as these guys' bank accounts go, because all of them are financially doing all right, I'm sure. There's no denying that there's a lot of mind games going on in these online cups that will come into play for the big offline events too. Because pro gamers have a long memory, okay? They will remember every single game that you played against them. And, well, maybe not every single one of them from many, many years ago, but at least the games that you've played against them over the last year or so are going to be quite fresh in their memories. Very quick lair right here from Reynor. This is a 3-minute lair before Zergling speed. So this is him opening up, well, just 2 base, I guess, Roach? 2 base Roach, yeah. 2 base Roach right here with +1 missile. Fair enough. Oh, this is a good scout, though, by Solar. Going into the main base and seeing that, indeed, this is a skip link speed and a very quick lair does make life a little bit easier for the South Korean Zerg player. Yeah, Solar will certainly have a pivot available against this sort of thing, right? So one of the advantages of playing normal StarCraft is that you can, well, learn every single response to every single situation. So even though what Reynor is doing here is pretty uncommon for this matchup, Solar will have a pivot here. He will know exactly how many drones he can get away with and when he needs to start making army. At the very least, that's what I'm assuming. So he knows that his opponent at most is going to have 44 drone economy because he's currently on 2 bases. So that would be 16 drones right here on minerals and then, well, 3 for each gas geyser. That comes down to 22 per base. And then for 2 bases, Reynor can really only support 44 drones. So what Solar is sitting on right now is 49 drones. That means that he is doing the same unit composition as Reynor, but off of a slightly bigger economy. So he's got about 10% more eco here than Reynor, and that seems perfect to me. Obviously, he's going to be a little bit later as far as the lair goes. His tech is going to be slightly delayed, but this does mean that Solar is ultimately going to be able to make more of that same unit. So strategically, what Solar here is doing is very sound. He obviously has the defender's advantage, so even though his roach speed won't be done nearly as quickly because this requires a lair, I think he should be a-okay because all of the units that he's making are going to be spawning basically in the middle of combat. Now, a little bit of a line of creep here is being set up. A bit of a, I don't really want to call it a German Autobahn, right? Like, it's not, no, this is not the Autobahn strategy from Lambo. It's a little bit different here. This is just an Overlord dropping some creep and threatening an attack. Yep. So Reynor moves across and then goes back home. Okay. So, in the meantime, even though the third hatchery here for Reynor was very late, it is going to finish up eventually. Solar right now recognizes that this is a rather passive follow-up here from Reynor, so he's powering out drones. He is gonna go for mass saturation on that third base, and it's gonna be up to Reynor to try and match that eco, or, well, try and go for an attack. But already this becomes a bit of a dance here, right? You have to decide if you want to make army units or if you want to make workers, and making that decision is significantly easier said than done, because if you make too many workers, you kind of lose. If you make too much army, you also kind of lose. But usually with Zerg, it feels bad to make a little bit of army and then a couple of drones, and then a little bit of army and a couple of drones. Anyways, here comes Reynor. First real proper check in this game. Is there enough? He's droning on the back of this. Yeah, I think there's more than enough here for Solar, who's probably thinking about making a fourth hatch now that he's deflected that push from the opponent. He did go for Overlord speed as well. We do have a couple contaminations, by the way, coming up. One of the most underutilized spells in StarCraft 2. But when you're Rainor and you have plenty of APM to spare, I guess it's okay. A couple of Biles are trying to land over here, but I really don't think this fight is going to do all too much. I mean, he is going to commit pretty hard. Those Biles are good, though. Yeah, the concave here for Solar is also not bad. He's got a lot more roaches coming up. Problem is, Solar decided to go off creep with an army that does not have roach speed. So, ultimately... yeah, it's just awkward. You can't really chase, right? So you're just kind of in this scenario right now where you have Overlord speed, but you don't have roach speed. You have all these units, but they're kind of awkward to play. Okay. There's the fourth hatchery going down. Tunneling Claws together with Burrow is going to be the next step in Solar's master plan. The idea being that he's gonna send a couple roaches up here, a couple roaches up there, a couple roaches into the main base, and then unburrow them while pushing probably with his main army. Both players going double upgrades here as well for that roach-based army. So this is all actually, if you haven't seen a Zerg versus Zerg in a while, I don't really upload a lot of ZVZs on my channel anymore, mostly because nobody really watches them. But it looks like I've tricked you guys into staying around for this video for this long. Ha! But I make it very obvious that the video is a ZVZ, or a Terran versus Terran, or a Protoss versus Protoss for that matter. Usually the view count is not nearly as great. But if you're listening to this, maybe I've successfully tricked you into consuming some of this glorious matchup too. Because I actually think ZVZ is excellent, save for TVT and PvP. Very fun matchups, but there's no denying that the viewer count is always a little bit lower. Anyways. This is, if you haven't seen Zerg versus Zerg at the highest level in a while, this is all very conventional. So these guys are desperately trying to trick the opponent, but ultimately they're really just ending up with a similar economy and a similar amount of roaches. They're going for similar upgrades, and ultimately all of the roads do lead to this same situation. There may be a transition towards Hydras and Lurkers. There may be a transition to Mutas. There may be a transition towards just a hive with Vipers. The greatest unit composition you can make in this matchup is Hydra, Lurker, Viper, because it kills everything, but the problem is it's also very gas heavy. So here's the first step in that particular direction now, though. So we are, well, potentially seeing the end of the Roach Age here. Roach drops are going to be coming up too, by the way. Here's the tunneled roaches for Solar. Yeah, they're tiptoeing around each other. It's a delicate dance. Pro gamers are very good at dancing, though. Not in actual clubs, of course. No. But when it comes to controlling their roaches. And any other Zerg units that they might want to micro in this instance. Ooh, despite the concave advantage right here for Reynor, Solar is the one that shoves forward. Both players, though, reinforcing with tons of roaches. We have that roach drop as well from Reynor in the meantime over in the Natural Expo. Overlords are patrolling left, right, and center. The idea behind that is to try and, well... Queen decided to burrow. The idea behind that, oh, roaches over here are burrowed underneath. Dude, lovely play right here from Reynor as he's actually grabbing the kills on most of those Ravagers. And I think he's hunting for that last one too. Doesn't quite get to it. Well, a couple misrelied units here too from Solar. Reynor has picked up the speed. Yeah, he's picked up the pace. So you can see APM-wise, Reynor is going north of close to 500 average actions per minute. And you can see that Solar is starting to falter a little bit. Okay. Now suddenly, Reynor's find himself with a 20 supply lead. Hydra then coming up, Hive coming up too. Excellent transition, and obviously Solar, under so much pressure, he can't really make that same transition at this point in time. So if Reynor can get to Lurker play, that would be massive. Right, that would be amazing for him, but that's an expensive investment. So if you spent like 500 minerals, 500 gas on things, well, that aren't roaches in this particular instance, obviously you may just be throwing away your advantage. There's the Lurker then though, Reynor feeling brave, he feels like he can get away with it, and I think I agree. Hive coming up there as well for Solar. No Hydra then for him yet, so he may just be considering going just for Vipers, in case the opponent has got, for example, a bunch of Lurkers of their own, which is what Reynor is aiming for. You can still use those Vipers to abduct them into the opponent's army as well. Or into your army. You can abduct them wherever you like. +3 fires up too here for Reynor, so he's feeling comfortable. Roach dropping the main base, trying to be a nuisance. Couple roaches here on the left side of the map also trying to be as annoying as they possibly can be. Okay. Hydra then comes up for Solar. Economically speaking, though, Reynor has got a much nicer bank. Main issue here, though, for Reynor is that he doesn't have a lot of gas. So it's easy to look at this game and realize, yeah, this is a Solar deficit. However, it's not that clear-cut. It is very easy to slip up at this point in time, grab a couple extra roach kills, at which point the gas count is the real equalizer, and Solar isn't really that far behind in that department. Now, the one thing that Reynor does have, though, is that fully finished Lurker Den, while at the same time we have a Lurker Den only just now really started here for Reynor, or for Solar, rather. Reynor, in the meantime, harassing inside of that main base, harassing over here on the left side of the map. The dance in the middle does continue. +3/+3 coming up. That's going to make those roaches so much more powerful. But it's also quite an expensive set of upgrades. We just continue that cheeky little overlord with a couple of roaches inside of it. Yeah, this is where you almost go into like a flow state whenever you play StarCraft 2. It's kind of nice, actually. When all of this is flowing smoothly and you're not really feeling like you have to play catch-up the entire time. This is a game that feels amazing for Reynor, I'm pretty sure. Like, everything's kind of cruising along. You know you're at an advantage, and you also know that you could still lose. But if you don't make any mistakes, this should ultimately, well, lead towards a Reynor victory. And it is nice that he's actually confident in his ZVZ, right? After that first series that we had a look at today, you could make the argument that maybe he did it because he doesn't want to play against somebody like Dark. And all he can do is just cheese, but Lurkers are coming. Lurkers are on the production tab. Nice bottles connection right there, though. Roaches in the main base still trying to be annoying. Roaches here on the right side of the map as well for Solar. Tunneled on the ground and just being an absolute nuisance. But now the Lurkers are out. And this means that the age of the Roach is ending. Yeah. It's like when humans started to transition towards like bronze tools, right? This means that we're no longer going to be we're not going to be using our old tools very much anymore. No, it's sad. Viper's coming up as well. The Iron Age is approaching. Solar are happy to abduct any of those units. Vipers are amazingly strong, by the way, but also, well, amazingly expensive. Much like human civilization, by the way, you can tell here that that transition was not a smooth one, as Reynor does feel compelled to go and add on a few more roaches for now. I don't think he really needed to add on roaches, but important holds here, though, from Solar. It's very easy for Solar to, well, accidentally lose or to skip teching up altogether, right? So he could hold on with pure Roach and then not go into Hive, not go into Lurkers, not go into Vipers. But at that point, he would just sort of run out of cash and he would just run out of steam over the course of like the next 5 minutes or so. Instead, Solar is making all the right moves as a player who is slightly behind. So real quick, Vipers have a couple useful skills in this matchup. First off, they have Blinding Cloud. Blinding Cloud shuts down any units that have ranged attacks. So that is all of the units right now for both players. Secondly, it's got a skill called Abduction. Abduction allows you to abduct units, well, in the direction of where the Viper is located. Oftentimes used on lurkers from the opponent, but you can obviously also use it on your opponent's Vipers. So you can drag your opponent's Vipers into, well, your own Hydralisk. And at the same time, there's also Parasitic Bomb, which deals 120 area of effect damage to units affected by it, but it can only be targeting flying units. And obviously that means you can be throwing it on your opponent's Vipers too. So sometimes the counter to Vipers is to have more Vipers in this matchup. So there's the Parabombs, there's the Abduction. Looks like Reynor so far getting the upper end of this trade. Trying his best though, does end up losing a Lurker. Parabombs dealing a lot of damage, but Vipers have quite a bit of HP as well. Takes 2 Parasitic Bombs to kill one. In the meantime though, big attack right here for Reynor on the right side of the map. Trying his best to go after whatever he can. Okay. Lurker Dan actually for Solar very exposed. I don't love that positioning. Losing those right now would be costly. Without Vipers, I don't think you can really push in here as Solar. Although he's trying to make a bit of a move here. In the meantime, Rainor is pushing on the other side of the map. Gets underneath the Vipers from the opponent that were just trying to gather energy. And just like that, a house of cards, it comes tumbling down. The margin for error is absolutely tiny. It's Rainor who wins over Solar 2-1. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you really enjoyed it, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notified as soon as my next video goes live. I also want to give a special shout out today to the Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for directly supporting my channel. If you're interested, there's a link down below in the description of this video. But look at these legends scrolling across your screen. For now though, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to smile, and I hope to see you once again very soon for another video.